Yeah, one moment. You can start now.
Thank you. Always nice to see everybody on the committee and some other faces, some familiar, some for the first time. We'll be with you in just a second. I want to make sure I have the updated agenda. I do. Welcome to the June 7th, 2022 meeting of the Manhattan Community Board 6 Environment and Parks Committee. My name is Kevin O'Keefe and I am the committee chair. This meeting is called to order at 7:02 p.m. New York time. And tonight we are joined by Community Associate Alexandra Crawford. Now, members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through Zoom's Q&A feature. Following the committee's discussion, we will field any questions from the public. Actually, we do, Alex, I believe we need a minutes taker for tonight's meeting. Anybody who cares to be the meeting taker on committee, please virtually raise your hand. Not too much pressure. Oh, I see a hand. Thank you very much. That is Reshma. I appreciate it. We will now take attendance. Alex will conduct that roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Marty Barrett. Matt Bondi.
Here.
Claire Brennan.
Here.
Jeannie D'Onofrio.
Present.
Paige Judge.
Here.
Anton Malner. Anton Malner.
He was here.
He's here. I see him.
I see him too. I think he's having, yeah, I can't hear him.
He was. I saw it was buffering earlier.
I'll come back. Raj Nayar.
Present.
Kevin O'Keefe.
Present.
Reshma Patel.
Present.
Dean Stefanidis.
Present.
Mark Thompson. Maura Wong.
Present.
And Letty Simon.
She may be joining, Letty, if Letty's not on, she may be joining us late.
Okay, well, we have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office, and it can now be seen on the screen. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting this agenda, you may raise your hand virtually. Do not see any. With no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Now, the minutes from the May 3rd committee meeting were distributed ahead of time. If there is no objection, we will adopt those minutes as drafted. Committee members, if you object to adopting the minutes from that previous meeting, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, those minutes from the May 3rd committee meeting are adopted and will soon be available on the Community Board 6 website. Now, in order to conduct an efficient meeting, I want to review a few rules. Number one, no one may speak until granted the floor. Two, committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please virtually raise your hand. Three, the chat function should never be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us of any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information, say an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. Number four, when a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Number five, we are required by the state of New York law to have a transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion, and I will try to do the same. We start with agenda item number one. This is a presentation by the Parks Department on a temporary public art installation at DAG Hammarskjöld Plaza. Joining us this evening for the Parks Department is Senior Public Art Coordinator Elizabeth Masella and artist Monica Weiss. Now, this is an art installation that is sponsored by the Friends of DAG Hammarskjöld Plaza and also the World Council of Peoples for the United Nations. It speaks to human rights and aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal of gender equality. Elizabeth and Monica, it's my pleasure to give you the floor.
Thank you, Kevin, for the introduction. I'm going to myself give a brief introduction, and then I'll turn it over to Monica to speak more about the work. As you mentioned, it will be in DAG Hammarskjöld Plaza. We're looking at spring 2023, so a little less than a year from now. This is brought to us by the World Council of Peoples for the United Nations, as well as the Streaming Museum. And we're also working in partnership with the Friends of DAG Hammarskjöld Plaza. Many of you are familiar with the rotating public art program there. We currently have a piece by Cecile Chung on view. That is through August. And before I just turn it over to Monica to share more information about the work itself, just to familiarize anyone who isn't familiar with our program, we are working in all 5 boroughs. We're a small team of 2 people. We permit about 50 to 60 exhibitions each year. We work with murals, sculpture, fence installations, quite a variety. And all temporary public art exhibitions, I can't remember if I said this, are on view for up to 1 year. All projects are funded by the artist themselves, either through private funds, grants, or other means. And they are also responsible for maintaining the artwork, installing it, removing it, providing insurance, and restoring the site at the end of the exhibition. So with no further ado, I will turn it over to Monica, and I think she has a presentation to share. Monica, if you have any technical difficulties, I have it queued up on my end as well.
Great, let me try to share my screen. And can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. Hello. My name is Monica Weiss, and I'm an artist. And it's a great pleasure to be invited to share this project with everyone. It's scheduled to take place next spring, to open roughly in April for a few months' time on DAG Hammarskjöld Plaza, the gateway to United Nations. As an artist in my work, I ask the question, who's remembered, who's forgotten, and how do we unforget violence in order to remake a world without it? In my films and performances, the eyes of the protagonist are closed. She is lying down in a state of meditative, symbolic, and peaceful resistance, and silent gestures of presence in opposition to heroic fantasies of conquest and power. Nubaya is the title of the is the title of the project, and at DAG Hammarskjöld Plaza, it's a temporary monument devoted to not conquerors and war heroes, but to forgotten victims of everyday violence. Named after Jyoti Singh, aka Nubaya, she fearless, who was raped and killed at the age of 23 in New Delhi in 2012, the sculpture functions as a site of reflection and preservation of living memory of all victims around the world. The inspiration for the shape of the Nubaya sculpture comes from the long tradition of triumphal arches, which embody victorious verticality, making wars and colonial invasions into heroic history. In Nubaya, I placed the triumphal arch down, changing its scale to that of the sarcophagus and mirroring it with its own double to create a vessel filled with water. The triumphal arch no longer hovers above us, Instead, we look down into the water and see a specter of a woman, her body shrouded in the long black robe and veiled, her face morphing from one woman into another, making slow, universal gestures of lamentation. In the film image, she eventually becomes a tree, which is symbolically evoked in the moving image montage, in which I incorporate large-scale drawings, symbolically depicting the moment of the transformation from the living body of a woman into a living body of a tree, referring to the myth of Daphne and her escape against rape. Resembling an ancient sarcophagus, Nirbaya honors women of all cultures and times who continue to undergo the trauma of rape, torture, and death. A site of meditation and stillness, the monument offers a pathway for reimagining collective remembrance, abandoning victorious monumentality and celebrating the horizontal and peaceful future of humanity. The many women I continue to work with and to film for this project come from everywhere around the world, from Poland, where I am from myself, from India, from US, from Afghanistan, and many other places, including most recently from Ukraine. Collectively, the performers become carriers of the embodied memory. I am deeply grateful that so many women from around the world wanted and continue to want to become part of this project. Polish Prime Minister of Culture and National Heritage and Sport of the Republic of Poland, Professor Piotr Gliński, has officially originally proposed Nirbaya for the Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza in New York City in his letter to the Commissioner of New York City Department of Parks and Recreation and to Cheryl Kazan Alvarez de Toledo, the President of the World Council of Peoples for the United Nations, who I believe is with us here today, who is also the President of the Friends of the Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza. Professor Gliński highlights the significance of the message of the Nirbaya project as a gesture of international collaboration and the message, the universal message that Nirbaya delivers. Nirbaya project inspired already a series of panel discussions that took place last year, organized by the Center for Architecture and Design in St. Louis, and the symposium was devoted to public space and collective memory, and addressed ideas evoked in this project. And over 30 speakers included people like Michael Arad, who designed the World Trade Center Memorial, Krzysztof Wodiczko, renowned for his large-scale projections onto monuments, Marian Hirsch, professor at Columbia, who is known for writing on post-memory, and James E. Young, who first proposed the term counter-monumentality. Nirbaya is presented at Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza in partnership with the New York City Park Department of Art and Antiquities and the World Council of Peoples for the United Nations and Struin Museum, and is curated together by Nina Kolosi, the founder and chief curator of the Struin Museum, and Cheryl Kazan, both of whom are here today, as I mentioned, and with support from the Polish Cultural Institute in New York, Adam Mickiewicz Institute in Warsaw, Ministry of Culture of Poland, the New York Foundation for the Arts, Center for Polish Sculpture in Orońsko, as well as Lamar Johnson Collaborative, an architecture firm in Chicago, Suffolk School of Design and Visual Arts at Washington University, and Experimental Media Arts at the University of Arkansas, among many patrons. But I'm especially grateful to the many advisors for the project, including New York City architect Rick Bell, and the commissioner of the New York City Mayor Office for the People with Disabilities, Victor Kalisi, and all of them who gave me very important advice on proceeding with this project in terms of its design and meaning. Reminiscent of an ancient sarcophagus, Nirbaya sculpture is essentially a container with water. The moving images which appear in water are projected from under the transparent vessel and composed of dozens of women I have filmed and continue to film, who are dressed in a black shroud and moving slowly, making gestures of lamentation. They represent mourners of all times and cultures. I want for this living, moving image to be fully accessible to all viewers. The angle of the recess in the sculpture is carefully designed to allow viewers in wheelchairs to look into the sculpture from its sides, allowing the full experience of the symbolic meaning of the work. The silent moving images showing the female figures dressed in long black robe, as if submerged in the water, will appear several times during each day and evening, and the duration of each time interval will vary. The sculpture dimensions are 18 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 4 feet tall. The piece will be assembled from smaller parts. The parts include acrylic and fiberglass basin and base and stone-like looking hollow inside outer shell. And hidden within the base, custom design film and video monitor will be projecting images through the water. Please don't tell anybody, this is a secret, it will look like a miracle. And finally, what I want to say again, and a little bit more thoroughly, is that Nirbhaya message is closely related to the 5th goal of the United Nations, and thank you so much for introducing that part already. And that 5th goal is gender equality and human rights. On November 25th, we celebrate the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, celebrated as the Day Against Violence since 1981. On this day in 1960, 3 Mirabel sisters, political activists in the Dominican Republic, were brutally murdered on the orders of Rafael Trujillo. Violence against women and girls has been described by the World Health Organization as a global public health pandemic, in which 1 in 3 women worldwide experiences physical or sexual violence in her life. Violence against women in Ukraine, where rape functions as a form of war, is a tragic example and a reminder of the suffering of women and other victims of violence that the Nirbhaya project opposes. Nirbhaya sculpture rendering and my related drawings are featured in the recent issue of the Centerpoint Now, published by the World Council of Peoples for the United Nations in collaboration with Streaming Museum on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. Nirbhaya sculpture is also accompanied by a bilingual monograph published last year by the Center for Polish Sculpture in Orońsko, funded by the Ministry of Culture of Poland with generous support from US Embassy in Poland. Deep in that book, in the very heart of it, a conversation with Mina Alexander has a special meaning. A long-time dear friend who encouraged me to continue with this project when I began working and thinking towards Nirbhaya in 2015. Mina Alexander was an acclaimed Indian poet living in New York and a distinguished professor at Hunter College and CUNY Graduate Center before her untimely death in 2018. The monograph includes texts by the acclaimed British art historian Griselda Pollock and by the Metropolitan Museum of Art curator Mark MacDonald. With his words about this project, I would like to end this brief introduction into the project. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. That was amazing. Thank you for such a deeply thoughtful piece of art. I will now open it up to any committee members that may have questions or comments. And again, I ask our Vice Chair, Jeannie D'Onofrio, if she happens to see a hand that I don't, she can call on them as well. I don't see any. I do. There we go. Letty Simon, you have the floor.
I think it's lovely, and I think it's both strong and sensitive. I only have one question. How do you protect this this installation from people that may throw things in the water?
That's a great question. I've had many meetings with various specialists, and especially those who specialize in public works. And there's several sort of actions that I am taking. One of them is having a number of volunteers and permanent and temporary studio assistants who will be checking on the sculpture almost every day. Another thing that I am taking on is a specific design of the piece which will prevent skating over it, for example, which I believe was one of the many conversations I had with many advisors. But also, there will be filters installed in the water, preventing from all kinds of things that will be taking place in the water in between the cleaning sessions. So I think the piece will be under great care and with lots of love from various people who already offered to check on it almost every day. But thank you for the question.
And thank you. I look forward to seeing it.
Jeannie D'Onofrio, you have the floor.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Monica, for that wonderful presentation. It's a beautiful exhibition, and I'm looking forward to its opening. Just a quick question. How will it look at night? Is there lighting around? I didn't see that in the presentation. Will there be some kind of lighting within the installation or around it?
So there is a hidden monitor, custom built. So basically the sculpture is composed of an acrylic tube on a fiberglass base, and then the outer shell looks like stone. So altogether it looks like a stone vessel, but there is this image appearing on the inside, yes, through the water. So it's very holographic. I've done pieces with water and projection in the past, and so that by itself is going to be a source of light. And then this particular Plaza location has its own light already. I've spent a lot of time there the previous summer, actually kind of probing the light, the amount of light.
Okay, thank you for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking, Jeannie. We'll look for any more hands. I do not
We have
see.
one more. Yeah, Reshma has her hand.
Reshma, you have the floor.
And more.
And then I see Mara after that. Is it? Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. This is really beautiful. And on a separate note, I was also friends with Mina Alexander. I wanted to know though, are you in touch with the Friends of Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, or maybe Elizabeth from the Parks Department? Because we have gotten complaints of disorderly behavior in the park a lot recently. And so the concern that was raised earlier about vandalism.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, I am of course one of the main curators is Charlene Kazan, who is the president of the Friends of the Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, and that has been discussed also with Rick Bell, who is not only a New York architect but also has been on all of the committees, many of them that took care of public projects and even monuments, like the one with Michael Arad. And so I've discussed those issues with all of them. And one of the sort of ways of working with it is that the surface of the sculpture will be protected with a specific material provided by the architects that can be washed from any sort of acts of vandalism. So anything that is man-caused can be remedied and washed and cleaned.
And I want to add too, we usually do at least one exhibition a year, if not more than that, in Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza. And actually the art has been treated very well. I know not every exhibition might be the case, but we have one there now, and the artist was just there touching it up, and she said it looked fine. But you know, as Monica mentioned, she'll likely have someone there every day checking on it, and we are usually quick to respond if there is any kind of vandalism or anything like that, letting the artist know, and then them sending someone to fix it. So but I appreciate you bringing that up. It is kind of an ongoing issue, but we hope that the art acts as a deterrent and is treated well.
Thank you. Very important questions. And you had mentioned, Monica, that there was Friends of Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza representation on here, and a couple of more people that were not mentioned by name. I know Ann is on here and Kim Baker as well. They know they can call the district office, Alexander Cofford, if there's any questions or concerns about vandalism and anything related to that. It's so important that we try to find a way to keep this preserved throughout its existence. Any other, I'm sorry, Mara, you have the floor.
Excuse me. Yes, thanks, Monica. It's a very powerful and beautiful project. I'm a very strong supporter and advocate of counter monuments, and I'm thrilled that there is one coming to our district. My only question is something maybe I missed at the very beginning. How long is the installation intended to be up for?
Mm-hmm. So it's meant to be between sometime in April, till the General Assembly. I suppose it's always happening in September or late September. So it will close before United Nations gathers. So that I have to look at the precise dates, but that's the duration. During the
So
war.
the General Assembly will get to see it when they are in session, and then it will come down.
Typically for this site, we'll have the works removed prior to the General Assembly. If there are a lot of protests or demonstrations, it's just been better to not have artwork in place at that time, just for safety reasons.
Thank you.
Okay. Amara, anything else before we look for?
That's it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other committee members? Letty, I did see your hand raised the second time. Was that for?
No, that was a mistake.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anton has his hand up.
Yes, Anton, you have the floor. Cannot hear you, Anton, if you're unmuted. I hope you are. Anton, we're going to circle back if we could. Still keep trying to speak, and when we hear you, we will.
You hear me now?
Yeah, we can, yes.
Oh, my. This sculpture is going to be filled with water, as I understand. How are you going to keep it from freezing? You're going to put an antifreeze in, or is it not going to be used in the winter?
Sorry.
It's not going to be shown in winter, only during the warm months.
Okay.
So April, May, June, July, and August, and a little bit of September.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anton. Anyone else from the committee? And then I want to make sure if there are any comments in Q&A from the general public, I do want them read. Elizabeth, certainly correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe still this installation does not require a CP6 resolution or other motion of support. Correct? This is
informational.
Informational, and I thought it was really important to put on the agenda. As Maura used the word powerful, that's one of the first things I thought of as well. So thank you for creating this. Thank you for Parks Department for keeping it, I should say, placing it in our district. And all of our friends at Friends of Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, please let us know of your let us know about your concerns about anything that may compromise the beauty of this piece. If there are no other questions or comments from the committee or public, we will move on. And Elizabeth, I know you're on here. I would like to see if you could stay on because, and I know there's other parks representation as well. I want to take the opportunity for all of us to better understand how art is approved for installation in city public parks. We know there's a process, but we're wondering, is there ever further consideration given to timely opportunities? For example, there's a sculpture that has for several years been on display on privately owned public space at 48th Street and 3rd Avenue. I believe we have a photo of that, Alex, and with also some specs. I'd love to put that on the screen. This is a piece created by artist Catherine Werner, Kate, if you allow us to say that, because I know that you go by Kate as well. Because of a major building remodel, the property owner has informed Kate that the piece must be moved soon. Kate is willing to move it to a park for public enjoyment. I think that's great. But the question is, can something like this, given the circumstances, be fast-tracked? And if not, maybe somebody that's listening tonight, or maybe somebody on committee has another public place where it can be displayed before it is lost to history. I will say that the artist is here to comment on this. Kate, it's my pleasure to give you the floor.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for giving me a minute to show you this piece and kind of plead with you and hoping we can get some ideas on what to do. The building owners have had this in front of their building for the last 3 or so years, and it's been a big hit. It's, as you can see, it's a wonderful place to sit and take a picture. And the origination of this sculpture was, I went to Frank Lloyd Wright School of Architecture, and as I was sitting in his private garden, kind of just feeling the place out, he has this moon gate in his garden, and I was sitting in that circular opening and trying to figure out how I could make my mark on Taliesin, and that's kind of where the concept of this chair came from. And since then, it's in the private collection at Taliesin West in Arizona, and it's been collected by private collectors all over the world. but I love the opportunity to have it shown in New York as public art. And the original sculpture itself, the inner rings actually turn 360 degrees, and you get really cool architectural kind of angles that happen with that. But because New York is New York, we can't have big spinning moving parts. And so we had to make this piece stabilized. So it kind of sits as you see it in the picture, but which is still really, really a fun piece for people to enjoy. The building owner contacted me last week and said that they're doing the major renovation, as Kevin said, and that they're hoping that I could have it moved or relocated until the renovation is finished. And that they said was going to be early 2023. So we all know how construction goes in New York, so I'm not exactly sure of the timeline, but I'm hoping that someone here might have an idea of where we can put this and keep it for the time being so it can still be enjoyed by the community while they're doing the renovation, and then it'll be moved back. So any ideas are very, very welcome at this point.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Kate. We're greatly appreciate it. And then it's not to put Parks Department on the spot. We know there is a process, but is there other avenues that in a situation like this to be more opportunistic since the clock is ticking? I guess we can start off with Elizabeth, and then anybody from committee that has any ideas, I would love to hear about them.
Yeah, I can share just a general overview of our process, just to shed some light on that. I guess the short answer is we can only, I guess, fast track things to an extent. Our typical recommendation is for proposals to be submitted 6 months in advance. I know there's a real immediate need to find a new location for this. We might be able to move a little faster, but ultimately, just with the current load of work that we have and spread amongst 2 people, and it's also a multi-tier approval process. I think it would still take at least a couple months to find a location and go through the process. Generally, the process begins with us receiving a formal proposal with all of the details of the artwork, medium, dimensions, installation needs. It looked like it was bolted down. We don't have too many sites where we can actually allow bolting to the concrete. So that would be something we would work together on, is finding a location where you could bolt down directly. We don't allow any bolting to hex pavers because they crack, and then you can't just replace one, then you have to replace all of them. But
what
ultimately,
the building did was build a platform that it bolted onto, so it kind of sits as a big platform there, and it keeps it stabilized.
Okay.
But is that a hex, like Elizabeth was saying, a hex type platform?
Yeah.
It's a wooden platform, I think, that they built
Okay.
specifically.
I couldn't tell. It looked like a red concrete, so never mind on that. But ultimately, once we receive it, we'll conduct the first review in our office, and then we also have to share it with park manager, regional manager, borough operations staff, and then the borough commissioner. We rely on our park managers like Sheena and others. They know the parks much better than we do and can tell us, why it might or might not be a good idea in a certain park. And then after that, we go to the community board and give a presentation like you're seeing today. We conduct a site visit. We have the agreement, the license agreement, as well as insurance and all the other not fun paperwork. But essentially, all told, with all of those different steps, plus our staff availability, it can take, a few months in the best case scenario to move something like this forward. So I know that doesn't quite align. And especially this time of year, we're quite busy. A lot of our staff are working outdoors. So it does take a little bit longer to have things reviewed because we're not all sitting at computers. But I guess, I don't know if you've reached out to the Department of Transportation. They have a public art program similar to ours. Or there's what they call POPs, which are privately owned. I'm going to mess this up.
Privately owned public space, and that's where it is now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think that you're right. I mean, it could even be, a situation, let's say, Stuyvesant Sound, Peter Cooper Village, where it's privately owned, but the public can see it, it's publicly accessible. Look, thank you, Elizabeth. I think it was important for us to sort of do a deeper dive on that process. It's always helpful to understand that Yeah, there is a process, and the process is there for a reason. A lot of it has to do with safety, and also, fairness doctrine. But I did want to at least throw this out there because we don't want this piece just to be lost to history because it can't find a home. So if anybody else there has any ideas, please, I know we're all connected to a large community. Let me know, let the district office know. But I'm going to give Jeannie D'Onofrio the floor.
Oh, I had one other comment.
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh,
Just
no,
also-
but thank you also for the Department of Transportation lead, and you're right, and there's
Yeah.
other places that potentially.
Yeah, and I would also now note that we have a 1-year limit. So I know that, like you mentioned, construction can be very open. So, if you found another location temporarily and you wanted to install it in a park later on this year, we could work that out. But if it did come down to the construction running over the 1 year, you would have to find a location for it elsewhere. So just wanted to add that. But I'll stay on, and if I think of any other suggestions, I'll let you know.
I wish they would have given me a little bit more notice on this. They just really sprung it on me quickly. And I said, well, how much time do I have? And they said, well, construction's already started. So
Yeah, that's why I wanted to amplify this as well, because exactly, Kate was put in a situation where totally unforeseen and certainly no fault of her own. They love the piece, but they're doing remodeling. Jeannie, you have the floor.
Thanks. I'm just, Kevin, I'm just keeping my eye on the questions in the chat. There is Ayesha has a question.
Wonderful.
And let me see, there are several more. Marla has a question, and 2 panelists have questions. Oh, actually, it's me. One, just more. So there are a few out there, and I would say that first on the list is Ayesha.
I'm sorry, what your last comment was?
First on the list, the first question is from Ayesha, but I think she needs permission I think Alexandra has to give her access to speak.
Oh, or we can read it's requesting the floor. Is that it?
Correct.
Okay. If this is about this topic and this topic only, then I will allow a few seconds for the floor. So go ahead. Yes, if you can do that, Alex.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's about the plaza. It's not about this. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so let's there is going to be a time to do that in all the new business. So we hope you can stick around for that preview of upcoming attractions. Maura, you have the floor.
Hi, thanks, Kate. I have a thought in the fact that it's a piece that really has a strong architectural lineage. Perhaps you should speak to one of the many architectural schools or programs in the city who have their own privately owned space and may be more able to accommodate this. Spur Union or Parsons downtown, or even Columbia or City College uptown.
Yeah, I was definitely going
to reach
out to the schools after this because they do have their own privately owned space and can possibly make the decision a bit faster than the Parks Department is able to. So that's on my list for sure, is to reach out to some of the schools and definitely some of the architectural schools, because I think this would be right in line with what they do.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other, Jeannie?
It's Cheryl Arluck, and there's also a note. And there are a couple of notes in the chat room.
Right, and these have to do with subjects I think that are coming up with Cheryl.
No, this is about the two. This is about the conversation now.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Be happy
So
to
maybe if you want to give Cheryl the floor, I don't know if this is
for just a few seconds. Again, if we can keep it tight and hopefully it's a question. We don't need comments. We need questions from the general public. Cheryl, hi. Nice to not see you, but see your name again. Go ahead. And Alex, if we've given Cheryl, I believe we have.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I live at East Midtown Plaza, which goes from 23rd to 24th from 1st to 2nd. And there's a lot of private space that is open to the public. And I can email you the president of the board's name. I mean, it's a beautiful piece. I'd love to see it here. I don't know the dimensions. I can't tell on my tablet how big anything is. But if you wanted to get in touch with her about it, I can email you her information, and maybe something could happen there. That's all I wanted to say.
Carol. Thank you. And the question is, would you be, Kate, interested in that? And if so, we can swap email addresses in chat or Q&A.
Yes, that would be amazing. I'm looking for any other place that it can get good exposure in the city, and that would be great. I will send you a message on chat right now with my email. Thank you very, very much.
Wonderful. Reshma, you have the floor. You're on mute.
Who would pay for the moving and reinstallation if we found a POP to put it in?
I would.
You would?
Yep. I would take care of the whole shebang.
Okay.
And if it went somewhere close, I could probably even just stick it on rollers and get it over there. But if it's far away, then just a trailer would probably do the trick. So it wouldn't be too hard to move around. It's a big piece, but it's not too big to get somewhere easily.
Okay. So my building has a privately owned public space, which because we just did some renovations, that space has to be redone anyway right now. So maybe we're at that point, we're reopening. So maybe I'll talk to them. Maybe we can put it there, and it's 43rd and 2nd. You can roll it over from where.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be amazing. I'm just going to put my email in public chat if that's okay, because I lost where she went.
That's fine. If you don't mind, that'd be great. And again, I have it as well for Kate. If you want to do it even offline, anybody, or if you forget to take it down now, just get in touch with me or the district office, and we'll be happy to get you in touch. I believe that's it. Unless Alex or Gina, you believe that there are any other questions about this topic.
I just want to alert Kate that there are messages in chat for you as well, if you haven't seen them yet. Just other possible suggested locations.
That's wonderful. And I think that's really the spirit of why, not just to learn a little more about the process. And again, thank you, Elizabeth, but also I believe this is what community is all about. Let's spread the word. We heard about this need. Let's try to find a home. All right.
Thank you very much, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you again for your time. Okay, so we're going to look, anybody, you can look in there, and Kate, you can look in there for those comments. We're going to move on to agenda item number 2, which is a report from the New York City Department of Parks and Recreation. Sheena Kaufman, we appreciate your time being here today. I don't think Sheena needs an introduction, but I'll give a short one anyway. Sheena is the district manager for the Parks Department, and here she is with the report. Sheena?
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I want to let everybody know that we closed Bellevue South on May 24th, and it's slated to open 1 year from May 24th. So next year, 2023, May 24th is supposed to be open. We supposed to be open. That's the date. It can open earlier or it can open a little later, but that's what it is for 1 year. Other than that, we have, a bunch of volunteer groups around the District 6 area with say Barton's and MacArthur, Robert Moses, Murphy's Brothers, and Vincent Albano. And that's about it. I don't have anything else. If anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer.
Yes, thank you. I'll start off. I know with the hot weather and getting hotter, we had told, and I know this is before you had come to the district, Sheena, but we were told that there would be umbrellas on New Wave Pier, umbrellas really for shade. We've had reports of children out there and the parents would love to stay with them longer. I believe, I know because I read it this morning, that last year, we were told by Parks Department that there would be umbrellas in this spring of 2022. Do you have any update on that?
Yes. So we did order the umbrellas. They're slated to come in on 6/17. And I guess as soon as they get here, we do the installation. So I don't want to give you a exact date, but the time the vendor said that he would have them in for us is 6/17. So I says a week, give us like a week after for installation. I think that's should probably be, long enough. But I'll give you an exact date once they get here.
That's wonderful. I think that's great news. I don't know about everybody else. Anton, you have the floor.
Thanks. I just want to know if there was any progress being made on the removal of the chain link fence at 57th Street and Sutton Place Park?
No, so far, no. To my understanding, that's still in some legal stuff. When I got here, I inquired, and it's between the building and the Parks Department. I don't have any further information on that, but everybody's waiting. To my understanding, it's been a long time that this has been up, probably for years. So they haven't given us an exact answer. I do know the cause of it, but I just don't know when they're going to settle it.
Okay. Claire Brennan, you have the floor.
Thanks, Kevin. I just want to follow up on the water situation at Stuyvesant Park. Sheena, I think we had discussed this last time or maybe 2 times ago, and the flower beds haven't been watered since our last discussion, and I just wanted to follow up on if you found a solution for that. You had mentioned the fire hydrants, using that. I also know that the community is kind of nervous because of the incident that happened with Josie not too long ago, and just putting her out of commission now. There's really no parks workers in the park at all.
Yeah, and before you answer, let me give some background before anybody's too alarmed. Yes, Josie, who I think we all greatly appreciate, spends a lot of time in Stuyvesant Square Park. There was an incident with an unhoused individual. I believe that Josie had to take some time off. Josie is slated for retirement in the fall, and it was really sad to hear that. That's the background, but Sheena, go ahead.
So the water situation, we're trying to rectify it, but we do have workers in the park. We send a mobile crew there daily, and we have a few pot workers that work from St. Gordon's and Stuyvesant to maintain the park. The water thing is, they're working on it. They are, our plumbers are, in the process of trying to get the water, and the fountains back in order.
Sorry, you said the water. I'm talking about the watering system, not the fountains are kind of less important at this time. We're talking about the water, sprinkler system, or how we're going to water the plants in the garden as it continues to get hotter and hotter.
What you're looking for access to water, or is it the water in the
so there's no functioning water system in the East Park. In April, you said that, yeah, in April, Phyllis, I believe, brought this up. There's just no functioning watering system in the East Park. So the plants aren't getting watered besides for when it rains.
I would have to, I guess I thought Phyllis was talking about the fountains when she told me that the fountains haven't worked in a few years. And I checked into that, and we're currently working on that. I will look into the watering on the east side and see if there is any water connections that's not connected to be able to water. We can't use the building any longer because both buildings on the east and the west have been condemned. So we cannot use those. So I'll look into see if any other connections, any Bruckner boxes that are around. And I thought I'd seen some closer to in the dog run area that we could connect some hose to and be able to use water from there.
Yeah, a solution that you had suggested in April was to link up to the fire hydrants. Is that what you mean by a Bruckner box?
No, it's inside the park. They're little square concrete boxes that you can connect water hose to and be able to obtain some water from there to be able to, use
I'm
on
pretty
that.
sure that's what's not working.
Okay, I'll look into see if that one we can be able to get that to be operable so you can be
Okay.
able to water.
Thank you. And actually, if we can follow up online, but I think that this needs to be solved before, July. So we'll follow up over
Okay.
email or phone.
Okay. If you just send me a brief email and I'll make sure I check in with our plumbers to see if we can get some the box to work. So you'll be able to you have some water there.
Thank you so much, Sheena.
You're welcome.
Kevin, you're on mute.
Kevin, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you, Claire, for bringing that up. I know that I've heard this from Phyllis as well. I know she had a meeting conflict this evening and really wanted to try to make it. Thank you for speaking up on that. And was there anything else, because Phyllis isn't here, do you believe that she wanted to share with the group besides the water need? About from Stuyvesant Square?
Honestly, I think that the list is like so long that we really just have to focus on the watering
Fair
at
enough.
this point. So yeah, I'm gonna take the rest offline.
Okay. There are some public comments, unless we have any other raised hands from committee members. I would like to share some questions with Sheena. This one is from Audrey. How long until the pool at 54th Street Rec Center reopens?
I don't have that answer to that. I can find out from hold on, let me ask the next question while I get on the line.
You got it. This is from Elisa DeVito. It says, do you have any update on gardeners in the district as well as the information on the incident? And this is the incident that Claire brought up with Josie. And I don't want to share too much information, Sheena, about that. It's coming from obviously from a place of love. We like everything that Josie does for the Parks Department. So, but I don't know if there's anything to add about the incident or about anything, maybe precautions that you're taking going forward.
Hold on one second. Ken, how long is for the pool if East 54th is going to open? What's the time frame? Huh? East 54th. Say again. I'm on CB6 and they're asking.
I'm going to jump in and Charlie, thank you for your question. I think I do want to make sure that is mentioned. We may save that for we have coming up on the agenda the budget requests, and that
okay
is more like. Go ahead, Gina. Oh, thought you had an
okay, great, thank you. Okay, well, the pool question I have. So they starting to mobilize the work as of tomorrow. We don't have exact time frame on when it's going to be open. We are waiting. There's a delay in materials, so that's the short answer right now. But tomorrow is they starting to mobilize the area as of tomorrow. Probably by next month we have an answer for you on if they can give a concrete date on when it's going to reopen.
Thank you. Can we, there's a couple more questions, but I don't want to forget about Elisa had again, if you want to add anything to the situation at the incident, if you will, at Stuyvesant Square. And Elisa had also asked about the gardener, because I know in the last committee meeting, because of her well-deserved promotion, a gardener is no longer gardening where she was before. Can you shed any light on either?
So, okay, so far we don't have any available gardeners as of yet. I'm hoping that we are able to hire some in the near future, but as of now we don't. And the situation with Josie, it was just an incident, unfortunate incident, but she's doing well. And hopefully we won't have any of these incidents again. But as of now, she's doing well.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And we're glad she's well. I'm getting a couple of messages on this as well. So Charlie, I think we're gonna keep this for the budget request. I think that's a better match for your question. And then we have a question for Sheena from Mary Louise. This is regarding, I believe, Peter Detmold. Is there any update on progress with the plumbing renovations at Peter Detmold Park? And again, this is Marie Louise, who is with the Turtle Bay Association Parks Committee.
So far, it's not. It is on the list. It is slated to be renovated. The water part of Peter Detmold only. They just haven't given us an exact date yet.
Okay. Thank
but
you.
But it is on the list. It is.
Thank you. We have a couple more. Yes, we do have more questions here. My screen is so small, so I'm going to try to blow it up a bit so I can actually see. Kelly Ann Allen is asking, what is happening with the building at St. Barton? Well, there's only one building, so I guess that's the building that's just west of the garden. It still says St. Barton Preschool and has a non-working phone number. And I want to do this. I don't have to do this, but I'm going to point out it's full disclosure time. And I said this at full board meeting, but since this is our first meeting since then, I should say our first Parks Committee meeting, as I mentioned, I founded the St. Barton Park Conservancy, and I'm its lead donor. I proactively reached out to the city's Conflict of Interest Board for a solid understanding of how I can handle any mention of the park during CB6 meetings. I am crystal clear on this, especially after a session with a Conflict of Interest Board attorney, which I had requested. So just fully in line with this, I don't have to do this, but yes, I have an association with St. Barton Park. Go ahead, Sheena, is there any well, I guess the question is the preschool that had used the garden and that had used that building, or at least part of it, do we know if the preschool is going to return?
I can't answer that for sure. I do not know. That's the recreation part of the parks. And so far there is no updates on what is going to be done with that part of the building. They haven't made a decision. And soon as they come up with a decision, I'll let everyone, at the Parks Committee, but so far there hasn't been any. I've asked and they don't have an answer for me.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for letting us at least know what you know. I do know that the signs that Kelly had mentioned, she mentioned there's a non-working phone number. There's actually two signs. One's both permanent signs. Well, they don't have to be permanent. One says St. Barton Preschool. The other says St. Barton Playgroup. I can say that it's confusing for families, like, is it the same thing? There's a phone number that doesn't work. St. Barton is actually spelled wrong on one of the signs, for what it's worth. So, I think Kellyanne is that's what she's referring to. Let's see, Cheryl, what is the status of the pickleball? We're going to get into that in budget requests, as I had mentioned, because Charlie Banks is on as well. I think that's it for questions. So why don't we go ahead and see, I guess, unless we go into chat and see if there's anything there. Again, Jeannie,
yeah, there are a few more in chat.
They're in chat. Okay, so let me go there. Stuyvesant Park, when will the fountain in the West Park be finally repaired? This is from Faye. It says there's an open pit and the garden is being destroyed by weeds and neglect. Don't know if there's anything to add to that, Sheena.
They're currently working on making the necessary repairs to the fountain. They were waiting for a few parts, and they're just waiting on that to make the necessary repairs. I can't give you an exact time frame because I don't know. But we are aware of the fountain. We are aware of the issues with the fountain. So they're working on it.
Okay, great. A couple more comments. There is, or questions. This is from Valerie. The watering system Claire was talking about is the pipes running under the park feeding various sprinklers. They are there because I have been caught in various sprays around the park. It seems they may not be turned on.
I will check into that tomorrow with the plumbers.
And Audrey, who had asked a question about the pool, just sends you a thank you. Thank you. It says, thank you, I missed the pool. Again, the pickleball questions we can keep until budget requests. Am I missing any, Jeannie, as I'm...
Yeah, there's one more from Ann Hirsch.
Oh, hey, Ann, I see that one. Hi, Ann. It says Hammerskull Plaza is, or it says, when can plumbers return to repair the 2 water outlets on the plaza? Said they were ordering parts back in April. Need it for pressure washing. I remember, Ann, we had talked about this when I was at DAG. Yes, good question. Sheena?
I don't have an exact answer for that. I got the same answer that everyone else got. They're actually waiting for the parts to come in to make the necessary repairs. So I don't have an update on that because they haven't updated me. I will mention it again to our plumbers out as I'm reaching out to them right now as we're on this call, and see if they're answering me by tomorrow once they come into work to see if they have an updated answer for DAG and for Stuyvesant.
Thank you. And again, thank you as always for being responsive throughout the weeks on a lot of different moving parts. Next up, I believe that's it, unless we have any more raised hands from committee. We don't. So next up, I want to turn to Steve O, representing Friends of East River Esplanade Dog Run, to talk about the group's proposed dog run alongside the East River Esplanade. Steve, you have the floor. And Steve, I believe, here you have the floor.
Sorry for that. I'll be brief as I can be. I'm just going to read a quick summary, some thank yous, and go into your presentation. Starting off, let's see here. I'm Steve O, by the way. I'm a resident of and a committee member of CB6, not this one. I'm looking here for the committee support for a dog run at the East River Esplanade. There's a small story. Me and my wife Tammy were walking on the East River Esplanade. If people are familiar, there's a section above Glick Park, now known as New Wave Park. Spoke about it and thought this would be a great place for a dog park. So blank canvas, plenty of space. I reached out to Molly Hollister about the idea. She supported it and linked me up with Kevin O'Keefe here, whom I've actually met at last year's Open Streets. He was nice enough to forward me information by previous efforts by Linda Levine and Jeannie D'Onofrio. They were researching how to make a dog park in the city. They themselves reached out to Tracy Sides, out to the ones who run the West Village DOG, a dog run in the West Village that's been running for about 30 years. And she beautifully outlined what was required to build it out. So right now we working with a nonprofit, Alliance for Kids Bay. We reached out to the Parks Department, confirmed that the space is suitable, got an early design, a bill of materials. Thank you to Molly and Sandy for the Alliance's support. And thank you to Brad Rommaker at the New York City Parks Department, Sheena Kaufman, who was there to help survey. Thank you as well. And Steve Simon. We have a petition that's available on allkb.org to help support and endorse the concept of a dog run in the East River Esplanade. We're also reaching out to community members, handing out cards, communicating with folks, trying to get volunteers, or as we're calling them now, friends of the East River Esplanade Dog Run. We're also reaching out to our local elected officials. Thank you to Councilmember Keith Powers and Assemblyman Harvey Epstein. We're also reaching out to local businesses, neighbors, and we're also reaching out to you guys, the Environment and Parks Committee, for your support. With that, I could switch over to the presentation of some of the facts about that site, but I can take any questions while I finagle through this.
I will unmute myself this time. I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Well, I'm going to make a comment first because you did say New Wave Pier, which might be a little scary to some. The dog run will actually be in a quarter that is between the FDR Drive and New Wave Pier. It will not impact the footprint that's now New Wave Pier. We're talking about, and Steve, you'll keep me honest, we're talking about a stretch that's not used for pedestrians and cyclists and runners, correct?
That is correct. It's frankly why it's kind of exciting. This section of park is fairly new. If you look at the presentation screen, these are some of the reference shots of the site taken in the fall. As you can see, there's a existing fencing over there, and it's the blacktop portion that we're talking about. And it stretches where one side is the park itself, and the other side is actually the FDR. So it's quite a bit of stretch before it gets to a residential area, right? And it's long. So it's a good space where you can section off for a large dog run and a small dog run that you've seen in other dog parks around the city. Just to further emphasize where it is, this is the Google Map view of where the site is. The left one's a little bit difficult to see. On the right-hand side, it was a little bit highlighted. And you'll note that the closest street is 38th Street with the service road going from left to right. 38th Street, the service road, 2 lanes of the FDR, the elevated road, highway exit to 34th, and then finally the East River Esplanade with Glick Park on the south side. So today that's where we're targeting, that little highlighted area. And just to highlight a little bit further on some of the research, we looked into this particular neighborhood. This is all referenced from New York City's open data. And we pulled out around March, April, the number of dog licenses that's in the area, particularly focused on 10016, which is where the East River Esplanade or the proposed site will be. And you'll see that 10016, you might have to squint a little bit depending on what device you're looking at, has over 5,350 dog licenses. And that was in the spring. And that's been increasing substantially, just reviewing over the open data from New York City. And these are licensed dogs. This is not including for people who come into the city without the familiar red tags, the New York City dog licenses. And you'll see in the surrounding areas, we stand out substantially in terms of the neighborhood, even in CB6, of the density of dogs in the neighborhood. Further down, this is also from open data. This is from the number of dog runs that's in the island of Manhattan. And the reason why you don't see 10016, because there is no dog park or run in 10016. In fact, straight across to the west, there are none. In fact, the one, the closest one, 10010, is currently under construction, and the one north of it is Robert Moses. So There's a vast blank spot in the area, especially for a zip code that has the highest density of licensed dogs in Manhattan. All of this information is actually available on allkb.org and goes into further details. So some of the efforts that we've got into is we reached out to the New York City Parks Department. Sheena was gracious with her time to help survey the area along with Brad Rawmaker at the New York City Parks Department, and was able to survey the area, sketch it up. Brad's designed 12 or 13 parks in the city in the past, dog parks in the city. So he has deep knowledge of the design of a park. So with that, he gave a rough and tumble estimate of what bill of materials that the parks can provide, what we have to provide as a community to make it a reality. He also mentioned some of the things that should help make a successful dog park that's not provided by the Parks Department. Some amenities like rain barrels, tool shed, tools, doggy dispensers, so on and so forth. Here's actually the sketch that Brad from the New York City Parks Department has shared. So you'll see that it butts up against the fencing where the FDR is. And some of the additional details, if a fully realized pilot program could look like this year at the East River Esplanade.
Great. Thank you, Steve. And, thank you for the thoroughness. I know not only on, pulling people together from the community, but also on the research. I've moved things down to 5,000, whatever dog licenses in March. I appreciate that means you're doing, obviously, your thorough work. Do we have any questions from the, and I know Jeannie, thank you for giving a shout out to Jeannie. Jeannie's been on this dog run vision from the very start. I remember we had a meeting, remember Jeannie, a couple of years ago, it seems like now, about this need. And now it's coming to a point where through the good work of the Alliance for Kips Bay, it might be a reality. I know that Jeannie has gone forward and drafted something as a potential action, resolution, if you will. We can talk about that, Jeannie, but are there any other questions from the committee before we get into a potential action step? No, I don't see. Going once, going twice. Do we have any from the public?
Actually, hi, Kevin. This is me. I just want to say one thing before we get into any resolution. I just really want to thank Stephen, all the members of the community, and Molly, and Sandy. What a fantastic job you did in such a short period of time. I don't know how many hours you put into this to get this going, and your research was phenomenal. And Sheena, thank you for all of your help. I think it's just a terrific, I just cannot believe what I've learned, that there were really virtually no dog runs in the area, one or two, but really not enough. And so just want to thank you for that.
Thank you for saying that. And thank you for, mentioning the Parks Department too, because, it's tough. They have parks where they can't have dogs. They love dogs, but they can't have them. And so this really helps alleviate other situations that they have with other parks. So I do see Maria Bates. It says, this is a fantastic idea. I don't have a dog, but there are so many dogs in the neighborhood, and owners have no place to exercise, socialize them. That's why they make so many problems in the parks. Let's give them a proper place to hang out. Thank you. I think you've crystallized a lot of people's thoughts with that. And I believe that's it. Is there anybody else on committee that wants to comment? If not, Jeannie, take it away. I believe you do have you want to propose the next step?
Sure. Yes, I'd like to bring to the committee a resolution I've drafted, anticipation of tonight's meeting, just to try to expedite this. The resolution's in support of the dog run. It'll go to various city officials. Steve, I don't know if you have, other than the elected officials, anyone else in mind, but so this is more of a, a broad statement from our committee in support of the dog run.
And then, yeah, and it looks like it's in resolution form. So I'm ready to move on. We can now take a vote on this motion for a dog run. Next to New Waiver, I guess really part of New Wave Pier, but not on the main strip. When your name is called for your vote, you can unmute yourself and answer A, nay, abstain, or not entitled.
Kevin, I'm sorry, because this hasn't really been distributed. Does anybody need, other than what you're seeing on the screen?
I thought they had read it quickly, so you're right. They haven't. That was
only because it's really big. It's 140%. It has to be shrunk. You can't see it all at once.
Okay, fair enough. I hadn't been looking at the screen. I am now. So let's go through it slowly. Sorry, I am conscious of people's time tonight. So let's go through this.
We don't have to read it. Nobody needs to read it. If there's somebody needs to read it, well, raise your hand, I guess. Otherwise, we can just have a vote.
Why don't you scroll through it slowly so we can all read? With a little, Letty, Simon, you have the floor.
Why don't you, Jeannie, just in the interest of time, why don't you just summarize what it says?
Sure, I can do that.
And that might be the easiest way, then we can sort of move forward.
Sure, I can do that.
Great.
And also the information, most of this came from Steve's terrific website and the link. So basically, it's a dog run. It will be along the East River Esplanade between 38th and 39th Streets. We've already mentioned the fact that there are over 5,300 licensed dogs in the community, and the number is growing. There's virtually no dog runs in the Kips Bay area. There's really none, as you saw on the map. And with the dog run, it'll allow dogs to socialize in a safe and healthy environment. This also increases a community environment with socializing among pet owners. There's also a three-pronged phase one, where it is a design phase, there's a community development phase, there's a strategic planning with communications, and also building up this volunteer base and a fundraising element for keeping the park, sustainability for the park once it's built and created. So there are funds to keep it clean and supplies where needed. I think I covered about everything. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Okay. So we have the gist of it. I'll give you one more chance for anybody on committee that might have a question, comment, query. We do not.
Recall the question.
Thank you, Letty. Do I have a second?
Second.
That was Matt Bondi. Matt, thank you. I skipped ahead to how we do this process with Alex. So Alex, you can take it away for the vote on roll call.
Okay, committee members, I'm going to go through the roll call and please tell me how you vote on this resolution. Matt Bondi.
Again, Fedek, yes, from me. Thank you.
Claire Brennan.
In favor as well.
Jeannie D'Onofrio.
In favor.
Paige Judge. Paige.
In favor.
Okay. Anton Malner.
In favor.
Raj Nayar.
In favor.
Kevin O'Keefe.
Let's see, Matt gave it an emphatic yes. I'll give it an enthusiastic yes.
Reshma Patel.
In favor.
Dean Stephanides.
In favor.
Mark Thompson.
Woof, in favor. Sorry.
Maura Wong.
In favor.
And Letty Simon.
In favor.
So the resolution passes with 12 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstain, and 0 abstain for cause.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you. And please, this will go now in front of the full board tomorrow evening for a vote. Okay. We are going to go on to agenda item number 3, which is a continued discussion of proposed fiscal year 2024 budget requests. We've talked about this before. I think if Alex can pull up that Airtable budget request, I know it's getting a little bit late. We don't have to go. We first planned to go a little bit in depth tonight. That's not necessary. But what I would like to do is anybody from the public that wants to propose something that may or may not be in our budget request for 2024. I'm aware of the pickleball group that's on board, Charlie Banks, I see, Cheryl, and I believe there are at least a couple others. Wendy, I believe, is on. There was a proposal that went to Councilmember Powers had requested any ideas for capital projects. And I know that the pickleball group had put that forward for a couple of places where they feel there needs to be more attention to pickleball. Charlie and or Cheryl, I'll go in alphabetical order with Charlie first. If you want to take the floor and just review what you presented to Keith Powers, and then we can consider, putting that on our budget request for 2024 in case that other budget request doesn't come through, the one to Keith Powers. Charlie, if you can keep it short, if you can review what you're looking to get done, this would be the time.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the time. The request is for renovation of the handball courts at St. Barton's Park to include resurfacing of the courts. There are lines painted currently on the concrete for the play of pickleball. We're requesting that the court surfaces are resurfaced and that they're done with regulation size. For pickleball courts, there'd be 4 pickleball courts, 2 on each side of the handball wall, as well as lighting. All right, that we would request for evening play we've played through the winter. All right, so it's not clearly important for lighting this month, next month, but we start to get into August, September, and we want to play at 8 o'clock at night type of thing. Want lighting, as well as consideration for space where the turf is on the old pickleball courts. We had 8 pickleball courts in that location. So I was thinking we have an intermediate solution, resurfacing, and then whatever a capital project. This community has doubled in size since I put the request in, from 225 to over 550 people on the Slack St. Martin's Park pickleball app. To think that we have to wait to 2024 budget is frightening. It's just we're so far behind the curve as a city on pickleball, and we could do a lot to help the community, from clinics for kids, which we've held, through our seniors playing that are 75 plus years old.
Thank you, Charlie.
Does that help, Kevin?
That does help. You're talking about the Slack user group that has over 500 pickleball. It is, I think, if you read this big story in the New York Times about pickleball explosion, they just announced the Major League Pickleball. It clearly is the fastest growing sport in the country. Cheryl, I think you had mentioned one park, St. Barton, but there's also, I know, Cheryl, if you can talk, I think you said you see Albano as a possibility to find a pickleball space. Could you address that briefly? Cheryl, if you're still with us. You had mentioned Albano would be a place that should maybe be considered.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
We
Hello?
can. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, besides St. Barton's, which you know how I feel about that because I've written to you about that, and I agree with Charlie, there's no reason that there can't be dedicated courts, even if you don't put the nets out and we have to bring our own nets, which is not ideal, but is doable since we've already bought 1 million of them. But the ground needs to be resurfaced, and it needs to be, painted so that it can be seen. And
Right.
we
If
could
you
have
could-
four.
You could talk about Albano. Is that what?
Well,
can you-
Albano, the west end of Albano has one of those concrete handball things that you like at St. Barton's, I guess handball. I don't know what it's called. The concrete slab.
handball.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there's room to put 2 pickleball courts there and it
What I
wouldn't
would-
interfere. What?
Thank you. What I would suggest is to go back. You mentioned handball. I talked about pickleball being growing a sport, but I think that the data has to come back. You have to talk if, for example, you truly believe that handball is shrinking in participation.
I've never seen anybody play. I've never
Okay,
seen anybody play
But
handball.
that's not good enough. I think we need to see real data. Anything that's anything but that, maybe not taken as
Well,
seriously.
Kevin, I'm not talking about doing away with the handball. You still would be able to play handball there, just at the
Yes.
court, just the same as St. Barton's. You would still be able to play handball there.
You would have to coexist. And I know
Right.
there's been an outcry for even taking over some of the handball space. So if you're saying that you would like the handball to keep its space and continue, there are other reasons that people use Albano Park, including bike riding for kids. But thank you both for teeing that up. We do not have to even place this potentially. I would not be the person to do it anyway, but we can, our next committee meeting, we can talk about these budget requests for 2024 fiscal year do not have to be done until the fall. We have more than one meeting to go to consider this. So thank you for mentioning it to the group. Jeannie, and you can look, is there anyone else from the public? I did want to give an opportunity for anyone to talk about budget requests. And just as a reminder from anybody from the public that is listening in, the scope of this committee is parks, environment, landmarks, and cultural affairs. So anything in those for any park in our district or for any cultural group, any landmark, any environmental issue, it's all open for budget requests. I believe, Jeannie, right? There's nothing else. Any other comments?
Not about additional line items, no, unless there's someone else, because someone's saying something. Matt, do you see something?
No, I just really, I may have missed the boat here and I apologize, but I just wanted to support, I'm sorry, am I still here? The pickleballers, because they really welcomed me in when I went down there to play. I had concerns about, segregating the park for specific uses. And I said at one of our meetings, how do I get in on a pickleball game? And they said, well, you just come down. And sure enough, I went down and they welcomed me in. They taught me how to play. It was great. And I see the need for the resurfacing there. I see the need for the lights and everything that they're asking for. And it's perfectly reasonable. And it's such a big group and people are so into it. And it was such a resource for people to exercise and escape during COVID. So I just wanted to really voice my support for all of them there at St. Barton's.
Well, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. If we can move on, Alex, are we on to old and new business? If you could put the agenda back on the screen. If you could, I would appreciate it. And I can pull it up as well. Okay. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my screen was popping. Just bear with me for a second. Sorry, I'm trying to get my screen back on. Yes, it is. Actually, it's chair's report. Sorry. If we can put up a collaboration of photos. I actually took these. The Astor Levy Playground is now open for business. This is the first leg of the East River Resiliency Project that has opened. And I am going to pull it up myself. I'll be right back. I'm going to find this artwork.
Kevin, I think I have the photo up.
Okay, and I just wanted to point out, the only thing in the chair's report is that this park is now fully opened. As you can see, there's a lot of different things there, including new basketball court. The track has been there for a while, handball courts, a number of other things, including a seawall. There is a number of different plantings, a lot more plantings than there was at the start. And you're going to see this throughout the whole resiliency project. There will be more trees and more plants than there was from before the project started, which is great news for the environment. So I just wanted to point that out. We're proud that the first opening of the project, the first step, is in our district. Let's move on to old and new business. If anybody from the community, from the committee wants to present any old or new business, this would be time to do it. Not seeing any. Jeannie, if you could just look more time, I want to make sure that we're attuned to the public. Any comments or questions, that we've addressed them all?
There are a couple, Kevin,
Go ahead.
in the looks like the chat room.
Okay.
Okay, I think, well, I'm going to start with the 825. Ann wrote, we request not only fountain repair, but that the entire scope of capital project as presented to community be reviewed with an itemized budget and timeline for completion. The new PB, Mark Levine, has requested that Parks provide an itemized budget to help fund the project. And the second one is, do you want me to keep on going on the second one?
Please. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So Marla wrote, what happened to the momentum behind making 36 between First and Second a permanent open street? That would be a good space for pickleball and other activities, bike riding, scooting, etc. That's the quiet street and should be a space for the community, not Fresh Direct.
Yes, and we're very aware of that. I was in a meeting with the Department of Transportation. That is in the Department of Transportation's hands. We're still hopeful that that will come through. There is a new commissioner of the Department of Transportation who we have all signs of being supportive. That space, as you know, is also, it encroaches on some MTA space. So there's also that consideration as well. So the MTA also had representation in the meeting that I was in. So it's not as simple as just the DOT approval. I think that the trial run last fall was very successful. And so there's no doubting that. They just want to make sure with the tunnel there that things are secure. There's a lot of other things as well in that area. For example, between 36th and 37th on First Avenue on the west side, there's a triangular green parcel. I spoke recently last month with Congresswoman Maloney, Council members Keith Powers, the borough president Mark Levine, about making that space open to the public. And they're really trying to be helpful in making that open, and also recognizing that it would make sense if there's an open street there to have a park, an open green space as well. So these are all things, thank you for mentioning that. These are all things that we're trying to stay on top of to make happen. Anything else, Jeannie?
I don't see anything else.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Letty, it doesn't need a second. So this meeting is formally adjourned at 8:35 p.m. New York time. Thank you all. This is the last meeting for a while. I hope you all, I'm sure I'll see you around, but have a wonderful